but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. All right. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back and smile again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour.
So as you mentioned, right, Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, this is an effort to collect, preserve, and amplify stories of Black land loss. And we feel urgency around this work because every year that goes by, we lose these stories.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The great-grandmothers die, the great-grandfathers die, the story-keepers die. And so this work has real urgency. Look, coming into this work, I felt like I understood the impacts of, of depriving a people, of a community, the right to own real estate, build intergenerational wealth, right? And we see it in the wealth gap. We see it in the home ownership gap. What you're getting on from this, from the last caller or from the last guest in this call is, it's not just the economic impacts, but when we interview families, what you see is you see the psychological impact, and it's it's been wild, Tavis, because you talk to some of these.
A reprise of our conversation today with noted attorney and social entrepreneur George Farley III, who successfully represented the Bruce family in the Bruce's Beach case, getting the land returned to the family. Attorney Farley is now the force behind the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project. George told me that following his most recent visit to this program, the number of persons logging on to blacklandlost.org jumped exponentially. Let's see if we can't spread the word a bit more today about how Black families can protect themselves from land dispossession. We'll do that in our second hour. In our third hour, the iconic Grammy-winning lead singer of the Mighty Mighty OJs, Eddie Levert, joins us live in studio today in hour 3 to talk about his latest single, I Want to Love on You, a career conversation with Eddie Levert today in our final hour. But we commence today's show talking politics with our regular contributor, the esteemed civil rights attorney and towering public intellectual, Connie Rice. Connie, I'm almost scared to ask, but how are you today?
Hey, I put the Quaaludes away and the Valium. And I'm giving thanks for Jackie Robinson for breaking the color barrier today. So
no, it is a historic day. Everybody loves and respects Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. It is quite a day. Speaking of historic, what Harvard has done or is doing with regard to Donald Trump is a bit historic. It seems to me that up until now, this is my read, Connie, up until now, the people have been resisting But the elites, frankly, have been surrendering. We've been resisting. They've been surrendering. And all that changed this week. And I don't want to put too much on it because I've got my own critiques of Harvard. Connie, of course, I should say at the outset, is a Harvard graduate. And so I suspect she has a peculiar and unique interest in this story. But it is fascinating to me that Harvard has decided to resist Trump. This is, I think, of momentous significance. I was just reading this morning, preparing for this conversation. Harvard University, I didn't actually factor this, is 140 years older than the United States. Let me say that again. This institution of Harvard is older than the country, has an endowment greater than the GDP of nearly 100 countries. Let me say that again. Its endowment is greater than the GDP of nearly 100 countries. It has educated, as you may know, 8 American presidents. And one of those presidents, Barack Obama, came out yesterday strongly in support of his alma mater, Harvard. So I suspect if there was any institution that was going to not bend the knee and stand up to Donald Trump, Harvard might be that institution. But why and what of it? And that's why I've got Connie here for the hour to talk about that and a great deal more. When we come forward, we'll commence our dialogue with Connie Rice on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, you know, to check that your seats aren't in the visitor section first, before buying tickets.
I'm so excited for this game. I can't believe you got us tickets.
Me too. Wait, are we on the wrong side?
Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
This is going to be a long game.
You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting. On Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate Day 100 since the wildfires flared up. And we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 Days and Counting Town Hall, Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. The first 100 attendees will receive a complimentary air purifier. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
You got to give the people time. Give people what they
Eddie Levert of the Mighty Mighty OJs joins us live in studio today in our third hour to celebrate his new single. We'll talk about that with Mr. Levert when we get to our final hour today. But just getting started on today's program with one of my favorite contributors of all time on all of my shows. I mean that sincerely. Connie Rice, always delighted to be in conversation with her. As you probably saw as well, Connie, Columbia now has found its spine. Columbia, as I said on this program yesterday, could have done and should have done the same thing Harvard did. It did not. It bent the knee. And now they come out and say, after Harvard says we ain't going for it, Columbia now vows to reject any additional Trump deal that further erodes its independence. I mean, stop it, Columbia. That's what you should have done the first time out. I digress. All right, Connie, go.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've been impersonating vertebrates the whole time, bending the knee. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous, Tavis. These are institutions of higher education, and we won't even talk about the law firms that, rolling over like and playing dead. But it is significant that Harvard said no. But look at what they said no to. Donald Trump basically told them, I want to take over Harvard and be the president of Harvard University. He was going to determine admissions. He was going to determine courses. He was going to determine who got in. I mean, it's a pretty low bar to say no to that. But am I glad that they did? Yeah, because it may just be the pivot that puts a little more spine into everybody else.
Yep. This is clearly, though, a fight that Trump wants. Trump and the team around him, they want this fight with Harvard. They want this fight with these elite institutions. Why are they so craving this fight?
Autocracy 101.
Yeah.
You kill the press. You kill every single institution that upholds the civic infrastructure that gives the citizens a role. It's like, the fifth estate may be the press, but the sixth estate is the people through their civil society, all of the organizations we belong to. You attack those. You attack their tax-exempt status. You attack the universities because they make people smart. They make them critical thinkers. They make them ask questions. Educated people aren't as dupable. You remember Trump looked at taking over the Democratic Party in a hostile takeover, and he said, no, I can't do it to them, but I can do it to the Republicans. Mm-hmm. And remember how he said, I love my low education voters? Mm-hmm. Well, if everybody has a low education and gets dumb as a rock like him, he has more power. So it's autocracy 101. You get rid of anything that can oppose your dominion, your hegemony, your total control over every institution in the political, economic, and academic, every sphere you can think of. You suppress it, you put it under your control, and you determine what they can and can't do. That's what dictators have to do. So this is he's following the playbook. Autocracy 101.
Yep. To the point you made a moment ago, which is a rather interesting point, I want to give you a chance to unpack it a bit more. This notion that Donald Trump realized that the Democratic Party was not as susceptible to his takeover as the Republican Party, so he goes over there and has succeeded wildly in that particular frame. I could argue, and you and I have agreed at any number of times, maybe even right about now, the Democratic Party at times has been spineless itself, has been spaghetti back itself. So, again, there are moments in our history where the Democrats have been no better than Republicans at resisting things that are not in their best interest. And yet, to your point, he realized that the Democratic Party was not as susceptible to this kind of takeover as the GOP. Why is that?
Well, the leadership, I would agree with those criticisms of the leadership. The base of the Democrats has the psychology of the open mind. And the base of the conservative movement, they have a more closed psychology that is more paranoid, doesn't receive outsiders as easily. I mean, this is actually psychological. There's studies about, the liberal mind and the conservative mind and what makes someone more susceptible, what makes someone more open, more welcoming, sort of more curious versus fearful, suspicious, and more conspiracy-oriented. There's an actual psychology to that. So that's just one element. But you also have, remember, the party switched. It used to be Lincoln the party for transformation and the emancipator and all of that. My grandfather, Granddaddy Rice, You couldn't get him to vote for a Democrat. He voted Republican till the day he died because of Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
So, the parties have switched in terms of openness and progress. But as they go back and forth, their bases change. So anyway, there are a lot of reasons for that. But Trump knew. Remember, Trump's a con man. And what a con man is really, really smart about is finding his marks.
Yeah.
He knows people's vulnerabilities. He finds your weakness and he pounds it into the ground and forces you to submit. Now he sold everybody on steaks, his bobbleheads, his water, everything. The man is a grifter, and you've got to have people who are willing to succumb to your charm and your con. And this is the biggest con in political history in this country. He's actually hijacked the country and is veering it off the autocracy cliff because, as he said, he doesn't plan to leave.
Yeah. There are those I saw on the news and other outlets last night, even today, again, preparing for this conversation. There are some commentators who have suggested that Harvard's decision to resist the Trump administration is, in fact, going to, they believe, empower those law firms that have punked out, the ones you referenced earlier. It's going to empower the law firms, going to empower the courts, in fact, will empower the media and other targets of the White House to push back as well. I'm not so sure it does all that, and let me tell you why. I hope it does. But I made this point, I think, yesterday in conversation with one of our guests, James K. Galbraith, the renowned economist out of UT Austin. I was talking to him yesterday, I think it was him, and I made the point that Harvard did this in part because they can. Now, you made the point earlier, they did it because they had no choice. It wasn't a very high bar, to your point. They had to say no. So sometimes you say no because you got no other choice, right? Not because it's courageous. I want to be clear about this. There are some who are framing this decision by Harvard as a courageous decision. Well, yeah, yes and no. Courageous in the sense that they're the first person, perhaps, of their stature, first institution of their stature to say no to Trump, but not really courageous when you listen to what Connie said earlier about what the bar was. It was, in fact, a low bar. Not sure it takes a lot of courage to say no to that. That's Connie's point. My point is that they also said no because they can afford to. I suspect they're going to raise a whole lot of money from their wealthy alums to make up whatever shortfall they're now going to get from the federal government for telling Donald Trump no, say nothing of the fact that too many of these institutions, as we discussed yesterday, have now tethered themselves to the U.S. government. So if you run afoul of the Trump administration, everybody's in trouble if you're tethered to money from the federal government. But I don't know that their decision necessarily means that everybody else is going to find a spine, even though I've tended to believe, Connie, in my life, that courage is contagious. Your thoughts?
Yeah, courage is contagious, and I think I'm not going to say Harvard's decision is going to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're not going to save the democracy single-handedly. No.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's not going to be all that in a bag of chips. But what it does do is it signals the pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had to say no, because I've been astonished. I mean, the New York Times has stood up, but the editorial boards of other major papers have completely caved.
Mm-hmm.
So every single major institution that really needed to stand up in this moment so far has failed. It's early, it's not too late, and that's why this decision by Harvard is an important signal. But let's not get carried away here. It's going to be a long, hard fight. Harvard can more than do it, but so can all the other Ivies.
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
I think that he has violated that the Trump administration in these actions. You know, he's acting like Tony Soprano, holding everything hostage and holding people hostage, and threatening people and take tax-exempt status and all the rest of it. If Congress may roll over and give him this stuff, but I don't think it'll be in time before the midterms.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I'm counting on is that they can fight. Harvard's got good lawyers, and so that is important. But what was more important to me, Tavis, because the most threatening thing that I saw in the last week of atrocities from the White House and the executive orders was the executive order that he signed. And nobody in the Oval Office standing beside him, including Gretchen Whitmer, who's standing in the corner, protested this. He signed an executive order that specifically targeted Krebs, the guy who came out and said, no, the election wasn't stolen. cybersecurity guy who certified that the vote was one of the most secure in the country, targeted him for persecution, and targeted one other official who stood up and said, "No, I'm not lying." And let me tell you something, Tavis. If every single law firm in this country isn't racing to defend them, that's a real indictment.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing you need to see them stand up and doing, is protecting the whistleblowers, protecting the people who told the truth, protecting the folks in these agencies who are raising the alarms about DOJ taking our private data from IRS and employment databases and opening it up to Russia. These folks they're a bunch of armed gangsters, and we've got to stand up. So I'm looking at those kind of critical points, not the DEI cultural distraction stuff. Okay, this stuff.
Yeah. What is your read, since you went there? Let me follow you. What is your read specifically of these law firms bending over?
Well, it's not all of them. You've got maybe 500 medium-sized, large firms who signed a petition along with some law schools opposing these executive orders and saying that they will stand up. Now, I want to see them put their money where their mouth is. For a lot of the D.C.-based folks who feared losing their clients because their clients would leave because Trump took away their security clearances to work on federal contracts. He threatened their federal contracts, the awards of those contracts. So their clients, they feared losing their clients. And I get that, but you want to know something, Tavis? If you don't band together as an industry, if you don't band together and fight this stuff, if all the universities don't get behind Harvard, that's how they pick you off one at a time. Coalition that we have to build now is not the usual coalitions that we're comfortable with. They're not going to be our friends. When you've got, red Iowans, they'd strike themselves dead before they voted for a Democrat, right? Right? They're standing with AOC and Bernie Sanders at this point to oppose summarily deporting U.S. citizens and immigrants without notice, a hearing, any kind of evidence. Just looking at someone's tattoos and throwing them on a plane and landing them in a prison in El Salvador. Even middle America and white middle America, they're beginning to say no. So we're just beginning to see it, but that's got to grow. It's got to grow fast because these folks have moved. They have moved fast and broken more stuff than any of us anticipated, and the damage is far greater than I think we understand.
We will see in the coming days whether or not, to your point, Harvard is an outlier. But I think you heard a moment ago that Connie and I both agree that their decision ain't going to mean all that. It's not going to automatically empower the law firms and the courts and the media and all these other targets. I don't see all that happening. As Connie put it, they ain't going to save the democracy by this one move. And yet, what I see developing here, as I said or suggested earlier, is a sort of, how might I put it, a sort of class divide is emerging in my mind, Connie. You've got, again, everyday people. You mentioned Bernie and AOC a moment ago. 36,000 people turning out for their rally here in L.A. over the weekend, and they continue. The way Bernie was cheered at Coachella after he left downtown, went to Coachella. So you see everyday people resisting, everyday people refusing, everyday people fighting back. And up until this particular moment with Harvard, the elites, to my mind, have essentially been surrendering. So I see a sort of class divide opening up here. Maybe I'm overreading it. You tell me what you see.
I agree. This is going to come from the grassroots, and then that may stop the Democrats need to get up off the mat. They've had 4 months now. Should have taken 4 days and gotten up off the mat, but they don't have a strategy and they don't have a consensus, and they're so internally focused with the Democratic Party stuff. That physics doesn't even matter to me. I think that what we need to do is come up with a vision, because you can't just criticize Trump and say he's about to become Putin. You got to offer folks who like poor African Americans are now joining the underclass. This is what fascinates me. We have subjected the black underclass to destitution, deprivation, and desperation for 10 generations. Okay? No economy, no opportunity, no rights. You can't talk to folks who live in a police state about democracy. If you're a black man who lives in Nickerson Gardens housing project in Los Angeles, Watts, Los Angeles, every day you step outside of your housing unit, you face a 45% chance of going to jail, Tavis. Not being stopped. You face an 85% chance of that.
Yep.
You face a almost 50-50 chance of going to jail every time you step out of your apartment. That's not democracy. That's a police state. And so we've been okay subjecting, Pookie and Shaniqua to that kind of stuff. We just look the other way and go on planning our boulets and image awards and all the rest. We haven't addressed it. You know what I mean? We left those folks at the bottom of the well, as Derek Bell would say.
Yep.
Now you're starting to see the white folks who've been left at the bottom of the coal mine. They're starting to say no more.
Yeah.
We're going to destroy this system if you don't give us an alternative way of upward mobility. And you and I have talked about that before.
Hold that thought, Connie. When we come forward, I want to just spend a bit more time, a little bit more time, on this class divide that I see emerging, and I'm glad, not that it matters, but glad that Connie agrees. I want to spend a bit more time on that, and then I want to push toward this. There's some who believe that this is in part Joe Biden's fault. He gave a big speech last night in Chicago. He's back on the national stage, but some believe that this is Biden's fault, that he was so focused on his legacy, they didn't get around to the immediacy of doing what they should have done more when we come forward.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Robinhood Gold members can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on annual retirement contributions. With Robinhood Gold, the perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Chicago's Black Mayor Brandon Johnson compared President Trump's threats to cut federal funding to terrorism, stating he won't negotiate with terrorists after Trump moved to strip sanctuary cities of aid. Former President Biden criticized the Trump administration for causing damage and destruction during a speech in Chicago Tuesday. Biden advocated for Social Security, adding that Trump has taken a, quote, hatchet to the Social Security Administration. There are now more than 560 measles cases in Texas linked to an outbreak that started among members of a Mennonite church that opposes vaccinations. The latest number shows about 24 new cases since Friday. And the antitrust trial against Meta continues today, with CEO Mark Zuckerberg defending his purchase of Instagram and WhatsApp. The FTC plans to call former COO Sheryl Sandberg to testify. The trial's outcome could reshape big tech operations. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California. Then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers beat Colorado Tuesday 6-2 on Jackie Robinson Day. Every player from both teams wore a number 42 jersey in honor of Robinson, Major League Baseball's first black player. Before the game, the Dodgers and Colorado players gathered together to hear Lakers legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar talk about the importance of Robinson's legacy. Kareem called President Trump's policies on diversity, equity, and inclusion an undercover reason to discriminate. Robinson became a civil rights advocate after he retired from baseball in 1957 and met with Presidents Dwight Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, and Richard Nixon. Robinson would not be happy with the current president. Robinson would be encouraged by the fact that both of Major League Baseball's black managers are right here in Southern California. The Dodgers' Dave Roberts and Ron Washington with the Angels. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, and it's almost time to celebrate KBLA's 4th anniversary, coming up Juneteenth 2025. We'll be marking the achievement with 4 key community events, including a special symposium, luncheon, and brain trust hosted by me entitled The State of Black Women in Los Angeles. Keep it locked here for details on how to join us for this groundbreaking symposium examining the unique challenges, triumphs, and contributions of Black women in Los Angeles in the areas of education, healthcare, community leadership, cultural and political contributions. This public convocation will provide a critical forum to address the specific social, economic, and political realities facing Black women in LA today. We'll go live with a radio broadcast and YouTube live stream, a public discussion, and a private dialogue with some of LA's most impactful women. It's an affirmation of Black women standing at the intersection of race and gender in times of adversity while demonstrating remarkable resilience and leadership. We will listen and we will speak out and be heard, all in service of finding opportunities and solutions. Please plan to join us in celebrating our 4th anniversary by amplifying the voices of Black women. For more on our symposium and 4 events celebrating 4 years on the air, simply stay tuned or keep an eye on KBLA1580.com and help make this Juneteenth more jubilant with all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
The girls got plenty good loving. Ask me how I know, and I'll tell you so. You used to be my girl. I respect her.
It's the Mighty Mighty OJs. Their lead singer, Eddie Levert, joins us today live in studio in our 3rd hour to celebrate an amazing career, and he has a new single out. So we'll talk to Eddie Levert today in our 3rd hour. Any good excuse to play the OJs, I'm all in. I'm Tavis Smiley. She's Connie Rice, our regular contributor. Glad to have her on in this 1st hour today, talking about all things Harvard and Trump and what this means. The whole country is talking about the fact that Harvard has decided not to bend the knee. And in case you just tuned in, Connie and I both agree that it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else is going to find a spine, but it does mean that this might represent a pivot in the pushback against Donald Trump. I'll get to Joe Biden in just a second. He pushed back, came out publicly last night in Chicago and forcefully pushed back against Donald Trump, and yet many believe that we are in this mess in part. Biden, of course, used the phrase damage and destruction, referencing what the Trump administration is doing, but there are those who believe that Joe Biden was spending so much time, he and his team, so much time on cementing his legacy, they didn't get to the immediacy of many things they should have been doing. We'll get to that point. That was Ezra Klein's point. We'll get to that in a moment with Connie. But Connie, you were talking a moment ago about the fact that you and I both were talking about the fact that we see a sort of fissure here, a sort of class divide that's emerging where everyday people, as Sly Stone might say, have been resisting. The elites have been surrendering. Again, we'll see if this is a turn, a pivot for the elites to stand up alongside the everyday people. But I'll finish your point and we'll push forward.
I think the elites are divided. So you see some elites who are loud and proud and really pushing back, okay? And that goes for legal and all the realms. So I think it's divided. I also think it's divided at the grassroots, but you're seeing the grassroots push back as a broader coalition, and that's encouraging. We're not at a point where we need to be, but there's signs of fight.
Yeah. There are signs.
Signs of fight.
There are signs. There's a piece today in the Washington Post I want to call your attention to. You get a chance to read it. The headline, Trump's war on universities will not end well for him. The White House has overplayed its hand now, leaving schools with no choice but to fight back. Again, that piece in the Washington Post today, recommend that for your reading. Again, Trump's war on universities will not end well for him. See what the Post has to say about that if you have time later in this day. So to Joe Biden, I mentioned yesterday he was going to be in Chicago last night. Indeed he was. Gave a great speech referring to the damage and destruction that the Trump administration is advancing every single day on a variety of different fronts. He focused last night specifically, Connie, as you know, on the issue of Social Security. But how do you respond to those who say now Joe Biden comes out, pushes back against Donald Trump, but if they hadn't been so concerned about his legacy, put another way, if they had jumped out on day one, the way Trump jumped out on day one, a whole lot more could have been accomplished. And I've been reading a variety of pieces where people are finally starting to make that point, that whatever you think of the way that Trump is moving, I don't mean doing things that are immoral, that are unethical, that are illegal. I'm not suggesting that. But the Biden administration could have been a much more aggressive. Everybody knew Trump, when Biden won, everybody knew Trump was going to come back and try to run again. And yet on day one, they did not move with the haste that Trump is moving with in this administration, 2.0. Your thoughts, Connie?
Yeah, they're in the wrong frame.
Yeah.
They thought they were in a frame of normalcy. They didn't understand John McCain and Bob Dole are dead.
That's right.
You know, this wasn't normal.
Yeah.
These folks aren't playing. They plan to end the democracy and end any kind of progress, okay? So when you're in that frame, you move fast, okay? And you have a plan to plug the holes. The Voting Rights Act, the Justice and Policing Act, all of those pieces of legislation that they could have gotten through when they had the House, the Senate, and the White House. They needed to shore up and plug those holes and change the Electoral College, make voting rights actually a right. We don't have a constitutional right to vote, okay?
Correct.
So there was a drop-down menu of stuff they really needed to do. That said, and I totally agree with you, they needed to move fast with a hard strategy to push back and kind of block and box the destruction of democracy forces in a corner. They didn't do it. Okay, they didn't do it. Yeah. But I don't extend that to saying that what Biden. The problem with the Democrats is that they passed some big stuff, big important stuff, everything from the infrastructure bill to the post-COVID recovery thing, which they say tripped off inflation, but it also kept people from going under. It was the floor that got people through COVID. There were some big pieces of legislation, the CHIPS Act, it was important, big stuff that he's going to get a lot of credit for. And he restored NATO and he defended Ukraine. Okay, this is stuff that most workaday folks don't care about. But we're talking about his legacy. I actually think the mistake is that Democrats don't know how to deliver on what they pass. They pass the law, but then they didn't deliver. Mm-hmm. Right now, that rural, they were trying to wire rural America for the internet, because sometimes you can't, if you can't live without the internet now. It's a utility. They had zero. By the time the election came around, they hadn't wired a single community.
Yeah.
They were too slow to deliver on the promises of very important legislation. Democrats don't know how to deliver, and that's why they can't even win when everything they're doing is right.
Yeah. Speaking of Democrats, this story is brewing and brewing quite richly, and I want to get Connie's take on it now. I suspect we'll be talking about this for a few days to come. But David Hogg is a 25-year-old young man who was a survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School school shooting some years ago. At 25, as you know, he is now the youngest ever Democratic National Committee vice chair. David Hogg is vice chair of the DNC. And yet, as vice chair of the DNC, he announced today that his group, Leaders We Deserve, is going to spend $20 million to help elect younger leaders, including primary challengers to House Democrats who are in safe Democratic seats who've been there too long. That's a nice way of saying that some of these Democratic leaders have become so chronologically gifted, so old, that they need to go home. So here comes a guy who's 25 years old, who is the vice chair of the DNC, who is now at odds with the DNC because his outside group, Leaders We Deserve, have announced today they're going to spend $20 million. In fact, to primary House Democrats in safe seats who've been there too long. When we come forward, I'm going to let Connie respond to that. She's given a long list already in this hour of the challenges, the problems that Democrats have. Is one of the problems that their leadership is too old? Are there Democrats in safe seats who need to go sit down, take a few seats? That's what David Hogg believes, and they're going to spend $20 million to primary, never heard of this, to primary Democrats. We'll talk about Connie Rice when we come forward. Eddie Levert today in our third hour.
When I come back to the house, your mouth is the only thing I'm gonna hear. It's a shame. All this fussing and fighting we're doing. Don't you know that it's got to stop? Don't make sense to go on this way. A love affair is a total flop. 992.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
As a fan, you know all the important sports cliches. And when you save money by bundling your home and auto with Progressive, you can get out there and give it 110%, even though that's mathematically impossible. And remember, failure is not an option. Well, it's always an option, just not a good one. But you're not worried because you've got ice in your veins. You're on fire. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, that's between you and your doctor. So get out there and leave it all on the field. Leave what? Who cares? Just leave it and save with a bundle from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone, and should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Connie Rice. Before I let Connie sound off on Democrats being primaried by other Democrats, younger Democrats in their own districts, today is day 100. since the wildfires broke out here in Southern California, specifically in Altadena. It is the 100th day, believe it or not, since those fires broke out. If you're listening to me across the country right now, you should know that at last count, not a single permit in 100 days, not one permit for rebuilding has been issued in Altadena. Only 3, as I last heard, in Palisades. But not even one permitted for rebuilding in Altadena, which raises all kinds of questions 100 days later. And so, again, across the country, everybody here locally knows this. But today, my home station in L.A., KBLA Talk 1580, where I'm sitting right now, is broadcasting a live town hall from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. So wherever you are, it's 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the Central Time Zone. You can tap into any of our KBLA platforms, KBLA 1580, our website, our app, our KBLA YouTube channel. You can watch live today this 2-hour town hall with survivors and experts and community leaders, etc. This is sponsored by the law firm of Kenny Emanuel, but we're doing a live town hall tonight. My colleagues here in L.A., Dominique DePrima, Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte, will moderate this 2-hour town hall tonight in the Altadena area, celebrating the resilience of Altadenians and embracing this beloved community that's lost so much. So that's tonight, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. If you're listening all across the country, tap in on your time zone at any of our KBLA 1580 platforms to watch this live town hall tonight as we go out to that area and meet and hear from those persons who have lost everything, many of them, 100 days ago today. It's called the Altadena Eaton Fire 100 Days and Counting. The Altadena Eaton Fire 100 Days and Counting, live tonight on all of our platforms from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. I wanted to offer that to you to tap in so across the country you can see and hear for yourself what's been happening. It's a real simple conversation tonight. What has happened, what has not happened, and what needs to happen. That's our town hall tonight, the Altadena Eaton Fire, 100 Days and Counting. All right, Connie, thank you for your patience. I want to get that out there. But David Hogg, vice chair of the DNC, is at odds with other members of the DNC because his group is saying, we're going to challenge some of these folk in safe districts, some of the folks who've been there for too long. What say you about that strategy as a way to help Democrats get off the mat?
Timing is everything, Tavis.
Yeah.
Not the time for that. I would use the $20 million to organize and reach young people who defected to Trump and young people who didn't vote with an action agenda for what the Democratic Party needs to be doing to get a platform of upward mobility of how the Democrats are going to deliver what Trump said he was going to do but didn't. There's going to come a time. There'll be plenty of time to get the old guard out. But if you got Democrats in safe seats, leave them there. Use your money to get ready for the midterms. I think what's happened is he's on that committee and he's tired of the old farts that are telling him to sit at the end of the table and be quiet.
Yeah.
And so he's letting his ego get a little too much in there. I would check my ego and say, I'm coming for you after we stabilize this stuff and get these fools, these Stalin-esque Tony Soprano fools in the executive branch silenced by taking back the 2 houses. And that's what I would suggest to them. I love David Hogg. I loved it when he went to Chicago and Detroit and discovered that black school children actually have shootings every week or every month. And he had no idea. Okay, I give him credit. That doesn't often happen from white America. Yeah. So, I think he is a promising leader. Just promising, maybe not quite as our two young leaders from Tennessee who stood up to the Tennessee Assembly.
The two Justins, yeah.
Yeah, the 2 Justins.
Yeah.
So all that young leadership, listen. Tell me where to write the check, okay? but be wise about your strategy. Timing is everything. You're not in a frame for the circular firing squad. We'll get there, but not right now.
I can assure you, Connie's not the only person telling David Hogg that. The entire Democratic National Committee is telling David Hogg that. David Hogg ain't trying to hear it right about now. We have him on our docket as a guest coming up in the next number of weeks. So you hear from David Hogg directly when he joins us here on Tavis Smiley. Our remaining moments with Connie Rice when we come forward.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelfie. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelfie can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelfie?
Just send them a text.
Text SKINNY to 323232 to get started today with Zelfie. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Text SKINNY to 323232 right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text SKINNY to 323232. That's SKINNY to 323232. SKINNY to 323232.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
In our second hour today, a conversation with George Farley III about the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project. And our third hour today, Eddie Levert of the Mighty Mighty OJs here on Tavis Smiley. We wrap this hour with Connie Rice. Connie mentioned earlier El Salvador, and this case is so all over the place, I don't even know where it stands at this very moment. But the Trump administration deported a Maryland man to El Salvador, to a prison. He had no business being there in the first place. A U.S. judge said, get him back. The president of El Salvador came to the White House to meet with Donald Trump, cozying up to him. The president of the country said, we ain't going to send him back. Of course I'm not. I don't know where this story is now, Connie, but what are the takeaways in this moment from this brouhaha?
Number one, we are all Abrego Garcia, because what Trump argued in the court before the what Trump argued before the district court was that the president had the right not just to snatch and throw on a plane immigrants or people who with no notice, no due process, no hearings, no arraignments, no nothing, no due process whatsoever, just summarily snatch and summarily deport, not just folks that are suspected of being in the country illegally, but you and me.
Yep.
He argued that he could do this to U.S. citizens. So in case anybody missed it, we're on the cliff of losing all of the rule of law. All right. If he tells, so the United States Supreme Court ruled 9-zip. No, you don't get to snatch and deport, throw folks on a plane and drop them in a prison in El Salvador. Can't do that. You're going to have to do some due process, whatever due process was required by the rulings below, and you got to do it by law. You can deport these folks, but you got to do it by law. Trump says, no, I want to do it my way. The hearings take too long. We don't have enough lawyers. We don't have enough judges. I'm not doing it this way. And you want to know what this is really about? It's about self-deportation.
Yeah.
If you threaten enough people with being dropped in a hellhole in El Salvador, maybe he's thinking, millions will leave because he's not getting the numbers with his ICE raids.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about instilling fear and terror and totally blowing up the Constitution in order to encourage self-deportation. But Tavis, what we need to be worried about is that if he tells the Supreme Court in a 9-0 unanimous opinion ordering him to bring this person back, we're in a constitutional crisis, and the court, they may let this one go, but we're in territory we have never been in.
I got 60 seconds here left. My view has been, as I've studied movements, which are very rare. Movements are very rare. People use that word all the time, but true movements, are very rare in this country, and for that matter, around the globe. Significant when they happen, but rare. My view, Connie, has been that you start with a moment. That moment builds momentum. And if you're fortunate, that momentum can turn into a movement. I'm starting to feel some pushback on this administration. Where are we in that momentum movement frame?
It's just beginning.
Yeah.
We just lit the kindling. But when I see folks in Iowa telling Grassley, bring Abrego Garcia back, we're pissed.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
That's a sign.
That's even bigger than Harvard.
Nope. I take your point. The heartland is bigger than Harvard. I take Connie's point. Connie, as always, appreciate your insights. We'll do it again. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, Tavis. Take care.
Good to have you on. When we come forward in our second hour, the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project with George Farley III and Eddie Levert in our third hour. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with